the thing that's been on my mind for the last like 10 years is like, is there objective truth? And if there is, how do we know what it is? And it's really just, to me, it's not logical. It's an act of faith. It's just like, I go out and I interact with other people, and, I could be a brain in a vat, this could all be the Matrix and you all might be fake, but basically
very solipsistic.
The reality that I find myself in is that there are other people, and they seem to be somewhat similar to me, and they seem to have, ideas and things that I haven't thought of. And so I can talk to them. Some things I agree with them, sometimes I disagree with them. But the things that I agree with them seem to be these kind of, sort of transcendent truths, that are just kind of true for everybody that I talk to. And,
I am.
But that's a whole nother.
No, this is great. The fine line between what we call objective and subjective truth. To play devil's advocate a little bit, the concept of solipsism has been fairly widely rejected among the libertarian, anarchist, anarcho-capitalist community, Mark Passio. But I actually think that that's a huge mistake, because while I do embrace the concept of there's an objective truth outside of myself, from a very real and logical perspective, the only real truth that I can embrace is that which I personally perceive of, that which I can personally understand and take in. So you can start with something as simple as I am. And I really love this statement, I am. There's all kinds of religious backgrounds. When we talk about the Bible, when Moses was on the mountain with God, he says, hey, who are you? Like, what's your name? Or like, what should I tell these people? And God says, I am, right? Yahweh says, I am what I am. And what's really cool is if you stop and think about it, I mean, I am, you can say that to yourself, you are. So in a way that kind of makes all of us God, because all of us am, right? All of us are. And it's the most fundamental truth that any of us can ever embrace. It's, oh shit, dude, I am. This guy, Descartes, he said, I think, therefore I am, but he made it too complex. It's really just I am. And so I like to embrace like two contradictions simultaneously. I embrace solipsism in the way that like all the knowledge that I have has to come in like through internally into me. At the same time, there's also this objective reality, but I can only perceive objective reality subjectively through a whole string of interactions, right? From the light that bounces off a thing into my eyeball, through my brain, yada, yada, right?
Right. So except that
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, the act of being itself, like the fact of being itself, validates a wide range of principles of nature that are undeniable. One of the sweet tests of this is you can't say that there's no such thing as truth, because that is a truthful statement.
Yeah.
So it's a self-contradictory statement, and to throw it back to Descartes, in the brain and the bat simulation kind of philosophical experiment, his escape out of that sort of hyper skepticism of everything that's experienced, his answers was I think, therefore I am. And then you can go further. There's I think, therefore I am, therefore something can be, therefore there is things, and therefore because I am, then there's other people, because there can be other people, because because I exist.
Well,
so
but there's no way to know. So Anthony was making a good point that there's this objective reality out there and the subjective reality in here, and you have to like the only way that you can really touch on the objective reality is through all of these crazy processes and experiences and your senses. But what I what's important to me is that the objective reality might not be there. And if it is there, there's no way for us to expect that it's anything like what we think it is, Well,
but the flip side to that is there's no way for you to prove that there isn't, that you are in a brain of bat, because the moment that you prove that you're a brain in the bat, then suddenly you prove that there is a brain and there's a bat and there's a lab, and how did you end up there? And then you end up with the universe again.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at
happens at every single level. It's fractal in nature, because what you just described, one, like you can do that again and again and again and again, every level up and down as well.
But so what I'm getting at is that at the end of the day, faith is all of it. Like basically the I am thing is not something that can be logically proven. I mean, I don't know of a way to prove that I logically exist. But the thing is, I choose to believe that because that's where the richness of, that's where the, you know,
you don't have to believe that though.
You know, it's enjoyable.
I don't know what standard you would need to have in order to prove it. Like, how do you prove something logically? Maybe we need to get back to basics a little bit, because it seems to me it's undeniable. Like, that's the axiom, right? That, you know, there's no such thing as truth is a truthful statement. Some things are simply self-evident, and I'm not the first to say that. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think you can. Everything in moderation, including solipsism.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
maybe I'm going a little extreme here.
But I mean, I think it's important though, because I mean, I'm not a solipsist for various reasons, but I don't think you can actually disprove it. I don't think we can disprove that. It's like the Descartes thing. Like, I mean, I think I think therefore I am. I'm having some kind of experience. I know there is such thing as a subjective experience that's taking place in the universe, but I can't really say anything else. Like, it could all be a dream. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is it's an act of faith to just kind of trust your senses, basically. Like, the only way that you can be happy and sane is by taking the information that comes in from your senses at face value. You can question them a bit and kind of compare your sensory experiences with other people's sensory experiences, but that's the limit. You know, you can't just be like, well, maybe everybody is nuts. You know, I mean,
I don't know that like it depends what you mean by faith, I suppose. Like, yeah.
One, like, okay, we have two hypotheses. There's like the null hypothesis, like everything that exists, everything that we experience exists kind of similar to how we experience it. And then there's like the alternate hypothesis that like we're just a brain in a vat floating in space. And of course there's like a lot in between that, but like, let's say those are our two possibilities for now. Like what criteria do you use to distinguish them?
Mm-hmm.
What criteria did you use to establish the null hypothesis in the first place? Why did that?
Well, that's just like a thought experiment for this question. I mean, I could also have like some other hypothesis that like it's kind of how it's like.
Isn't it an assumption? It's an axiom, right? It's not something that can be logically proven. It's something that is defined to be true, and then everything else is derived from it.
Well, I think the case that I'm making is it's not something that needs to be proven because you can't disprove it. Like, it's already proven in existence. Like
right, and what I'm saying is you can't prove it or disprove it, and so the only way to put it into the system is as an axiom, is to define it as true. And
well, you may be skeptical of your sensory experience, and that may be wise, but you can't deny the fact that you are experiencing, and it is you cannot disprove the fact that you're experiencing, and that's the foundation to stand on is. I experience.
Yeah, all right, fine. But how does everything else follow from that? You know?
Well, like, there's complexity and infinite information, and our capacity is temporarily limited anyway, so that even though there might not be like any upper limit. Okay.
Here's maybe a more interesting question. So we have this like experience during the day, and the experience seems to be consistent from day to day, and then we have this experience at night that's much more chaotic and that changes from night to night, like dreaming. How do we know, why do we believe that the daytime experience is the real one and the nighttime experience is not?
I would say that they're both real. I wouldn't deny that the sleeping one is real as well. It's just, it just doesn't follow the same logical or the same principles of behavior that waking life has. Doesn't have the same consistent rules. It's more in like the meaning symbolic realm.
Waking life is how you experience the external reality, and sleeping life is how you experience the internal reality.
Well, that's the question though. How do you know? How do you know that this isn't the experience of the internal reality, and that like your dream life isn't the literal existence, and that the world is just far more chaotic than how it appears during the day?
There definitely isn't a way to prove one way or the other.
Yeah.
Well, I like to try and separate the things that I know.
But what does it even mean for one to be real and one for not to be real? Like, what if one is
real? That's the
higher dimension of existence?
They're both real.
Yeah.
So I love to separate, I try to separate the things that I know from the things that I believe. Like, I believe that something's going on in Syria. I believe that some guy named Trump is in the White House, whatever. Those are beliefs. But I know that I am. I know that I dream. I know that I'm experiencing things. I know how I perceive something, even if I don't necessarily know what the reality of it was, right? Maybe someone makes a face at me and I'm like, I know how I interpreted it, but I don't know what they meant by it. So I try to make a little bit of distinction there, and there's a huge gray area between the things that I know. And the thing about knowing stuff is I can't know something for you. I can't make you know what I know. You can only know what you know. I can try and help you believe the things that I believe. I can use logic and evidence maybe to try and convince you of things, but I can't know something for you on your behalf. And so I know that I experience a rich, vibrant life when I am asleep, the same as when I am awake. Shit, man, when I was a kid, I used to love to sleep. Like, Ariel, you were talking about which life is more real. When I was a kid, I wasn't quite sure. I was like, these are both pretty cool. I like them both. But I loved to sleep. I mean, I still love to sleep.
Yeah, I used to have way more vivid dreams when I was a kid. For some reason, I just don't have those dreams anymore. Like, I used to have dreams where I could fly, and sometimes I would have a dream and I would realize that it was a dream, and then I'd be like, oh, that means I can fly, and then I would fly, and it would be awesome. But I can't do that anymore. I don't know. I lost the ability to like lucid dream.
Oh man.
I
usually wake up.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I usually wake up when I realize I'm dreaming. I get really excited. I'm like, oh shit, I got lucid. And then boom, I'm awake. Calm down, bro.
Damn it, I'm awake.
What were you going to say, Ariel?
I was just going to go back to like the analytic level, but the talking about dreams level is pretty interesting too. So I hesitated.
Well, there's a whole, dream, I really need to read Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning book so I can find all the archetypal stuff that he talks about. But he derives a lot of that from like Freud and Jung, right? Where they have all these archetypes, and Freud tried to do dream analysis, where he'd be like, what did you dream about? And then the person would tell him, and he'd be like, oh, well, this, is a symbol for this, and this is a symbol for this, and that means that, you are in love with your mother or something like that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing when we get back to like this question of truth is like people like Jordan Peterson or Carl Jung, like it seems to me that they're not trying to to grab onto truth by like grabbing onto what's out there in the senses. They're trying to find truth by going kind of doing a little bit what Anthony's doing, but like to the 8,000th level, like going inside and just like finding more and more truths in the mind, and as far and far back as you can go, and eventually you get to archetypes, which seems to be like the limiting case, and that already tells you, at that point you already know a whole lot about the world, and you don't actually have to go out here, you can just go inwards. And
the important thing about archetypes is that they're supposed to be kind of the same for everyone, right? Like there are these images that we kind of just all have like programmed somewhere in the software that's running on our hardware, and it's maybe it's innate, maybe it's just, maybe it is part of the hardware.
Yeah.
It's the emergent firmware from the hardware.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And I love how Brett Weinstein and Jordan Peterson, I think, both talk about how the hardware of our brains is kind of, it doesn't evolve as fast, but the software of our brains, and this is kind of what sets us apart from animals, is that we basically have the ability, basically when we're born, from when we're born to when we're pretty old, like basically our parents take care of us for much longer than the parents of other animals take care of their young. And that's important because what it does is it programs the kid with all the cultural software. And the cultural software is this kind of collective wisdom that's been accumulated over the ages. And it's and the process of Darwinian selection guarantees that that software is the most fit software. It's the most anti-fragile. It's the most robust.
Wonderful.
But and the important thing is it evolves really fast because it's software. It's hardware takes millions of years to evolve, but software, I mean, even just in the last few hundred years, humans are capable of so much more than they were. and just because of all the stuff that we teach our kids when they're young.